Assalamualaikum and greetings everyone. My name is Irfan bin Atim alias Unggon, and today, as a part of our INC543 Industrial Relation course, I will be presenting a critical case study on Abdul Kadir bin Haji Abdullah and Sabah Oil and Gas Development Corporation Sendirian Berhad, specifically referenced as case number 17/4-1 or 21/23. So this presentation will dissect an industrial court decision that underscores significant principles in Malaysian industrial relations and corporate governance, particularly concerning the appointment and dismissal of high-ranking corporate executives. So to ensure a structured and comprehensive understanding, here's an outline of our discussion for today. We will commence by meticulously detailing the core facts that lead to this dispute. Following that, we'll identify the pivotal legal issues that the industrial court was tasked to resolve. Subsequently, we will analyze the court's judgment and the rationale underpinning its decision. This will naturally leads us to an in-depth analysis and critique of the case implication for both industrial relations law and corporate practice. So finally, I will provide a list of all references and legal authorities consulted for this presentation. Okay, let's look into the crucial fact of this case. The claimant is Abdul Kadir bin Haji Abdullah, who held significant roles as the former Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director of the company. The respondent is the Sabah Oil and Gas Development Corporation Sendirian Berhad. The genesis of this dispute was Mr. Abdul Kadir, a session of unlawful dismissal, which alleged occurred on September 13, 2022. His claim was specifically grounded on the validity and enforceability of his third and fourth employment contracts with the company, which he believed entitled him to protection under industrial law. So crucially, the company defense presented a formidable challenge to this claim. They contended that Mr. Abdul Kadir was never legitimately employed workman as defined under the Industrial Relations Act 1967. The crux of their argument rested on the company's Article of Association, which are foundational constitutional documents governing the company operation. The AOA explicitly mandated that all appointments of officers, especially for senior executive positions such as CEO and MD, required the explicit approval and endorsement of the board of directors. So the company provided concrete evidence, a complete absence of any board minutes or formal resolution that ratified or approved Mr. Abdul Kadir third and fourth employment contracts. This absence, in the company's view, rendered these contracts null and void ab initio, meaning they were invalid from their very inception. So this intricate factual matrix led to several critical legal questions that the industrial court has to resolve. The most significant or threshold issue was the claimant Abdul Kadir bin Haji Abdullah, a workman as defined under Section 2 of the Industrial Relations Act 1967. This question was paramount because without establishing workman's status, the industrial court would inherently lack the necessary jurisdiction to adjudicate his claim for unlawful dismissal. Its fundamental jurisdictional prerequisite. Should the court have found him to be a workman, then two subsequent issues would have become relevant. Firstly, whether there was an actual dismissal of the claimant by the company, and secondly, if a dismissal did occur, whether that dismissal was affected with just cause or excuse in accordance with industrial relations principle. However, as we will see, the court never reached these latter two issues. Turning out our attention to the court decision, the industrial court ultimately dismissed the claimant case. The final verdict was unequivocal. Mr. Abdul Kadir bin Haji Abdullah was determined not to be a workman under the habit of Industrial Relation Act 1967. The key ruling impacting his employment status was the declaration that his third and fourth employment contract were deemed invalid and consequently null and void. This critical finding stem directly from the fact that this contract lacked the mandatory endorsement from the company board of directors, a requirement explicitly stipulated in the company article of association. Without this formal approval, the contract was legally defective and could not form the basis of a valid employer-employee relationship under which he could claim workman status. Furthermore, the court made a significant procedural ruling and it rejected the claimant's attempt to introduce new evidence pertaining to back pay during the proceeding, as the evidence was submitted validly. The court reasoning for this rejection was based on the principle of stare decisis concerning pleadings. This principle dictates that parties are bound by the issues and claims originally presented in their written statement at the outset of the case. The court aims to prevent a trial by ambush, ensuring that both parties have ample opportunity to prepare their argument based on the stated claims, thereby maintaining fairness and judicial efficiency. So let's now move to a deeper analysis and critique of this case, which offer valuable lesson in both industrial relations and corporate governance. Firstly, the judgment profoundly illustrates that the concept of corporate constitution supremacy in this case unequivocally highlight that an employment contract, particularly for high-level C-suite roles such as CEO or managing directors, is fundamentally unenforceable if it contravenes or fails to comply with the company's foundational corporate constitution, specifically its article of association. This is a critical point statutory corporate law. Okay, for example, Companies Act 1965, as cited in the reference, often prescribes strict procedure for such appointment. The critique here is vital for practitioners and executive alike. High-ranking officers bear a significant responsibility to meticulously ensure that their appointment and all subsequent contractual arrangements scrupulously adhere to all prescribed corporate formalities. Failure to do so can strip them of the legal protections typically afforded by labor law. Secondly, the case reinforced the industrial court's strict adherence to strict pleading rules. This court rejection of latent evidence regarding back pay underscores its stance against procedural irregularities. Okay, the analysis reveals that the legal system is designed to prevent trial by ambush, where new issues or claims are sprung on an opposing party without adequate notice. This ensures that the parameters of the dispute are clearly defined from the outset, allowing all parties to prepare their cases fairly and comprehensively. Any fact, such as a claim for specific financial remedies like back pay, must be explicitly pleaded in the original statement of claim to be considered by the court. Finally, the outcome clearly delineates the jurisdictional limit of the industrial court. The industrial court powers are statutorily conferred and strictly limited to dispute involving workmen. The court concluded that a void contract essentially means that no valid employer-employee relationship exists in the eyes of the law. Without such relationship, the individual cannot be classified as a workman. Consequently, this absence of workman status effectively strips in the industrial court of its jurisdiction to hear or arbitrate the claim, regardless of the merit of the alleged dismissal itself. So to conclude our presentation, here the essential reference and legal authorities that inform our understanding of this case. The primary case under review is the Abdul Kadir bin Haji Abdullah versus Sabah Oil and Gas Development Corporation Sdn Bhd, award number 304 of 2025. It's an important decision from the Industrial Court of Malaysia. We also considered foundational industrial relation cases that often guide such interpretation, including Anwar Abdul Rahim versus Bayer, Sdn Bhd, Chong Kim Sang versus Metatrade, Sdn Bhd, and Ho Kiang Ngan versus Mahkamah Perusahaan Malaysia and ANOR. And the overarching legal framework relevant to this case includes the Industrial Relations Act 1967 and the Companies Act 1965, which governs corporate structure and procedures. So that's all from me. Thank you for watching. I hope we all get a clear visual from my presentation of this case. And thank you once again. Assalamualaikum.